Hey, everybody, what's up? Welcome into Best on the Board here at The Athletic. Michael Beller, Dan Santaramita, and Ari Wasserman here with you on a Thursday leading into the fourth week of the college football season. The third week of the NFL season kicks off tonight between the Texans and the Panthers, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about some college games that we like as well. Dan, how you doing today going into this weekend?
Good, and I'm just wondering if I'm allowed to win games that aren't fading IU at this point. That's all I can do right, apparently.
Hey, you can keep on doing it. I mean, if we're getting opportunities to do it week after week after week, we might as well keep going back to that. Well, Ari, how you doing, my friend?
My play of the week is Ohio State. How about me completely going all in on a team that's inherently, deeply, and crazily flawed? So my bad on that, guys. I should have probably stayed away after the Oregon game, but man, that team's messed up right now.
They had a furious rally to almost cover for you in that.
I mean, I feel like I was on the right. I was on the right side. I didn't realize that the team wasn't going to care for three quarters, and then decide to pour it on at the end and not cover by 4 points. But man, no more Ohio State bets.
No more Ohio State, at least for the foreseeable future. We're referencing some of the plays we had last week. I'm going to be honest, guys, an ugly week for the show. 1-5 between the three of us. Dan brought us the one win with that fade of Indiana, Cincinnati covering the 4. Dan, you also lost on Virginia Tech. Ari took a couple of losses on Oklahoma and Ohio State. I took a couple of losses on Washington, the professional football team, Washington against the Giants, and also Logan Thomas just falling 2 yards short of getting over that 46.5-yard mark that I needed him to get over to win that one. So for the season, you guys are both sitting at 2-4. I am at 2-3. Let's get back on the horse. We got plenty of time, guys. It's an ugly start, but plenty of time to not only get to 500, but get to profitability here. We got a long season ahead of us. Ari, you're going into the ACC for your first pick. Give us your first play of week 4 for college football.
I think when you say get on the horse, you totally mean getting back on the same horses that you fell off of, right?
Sure. Yeah, of course.
So I opened up the season by falling into the North Carolina Virginia Tech trap. North Carolina lost outright to Virginia Tech to open the season, and we all saw that, and I was like, oh my gosh, maybe we were too soon on the North Carolina bandwagon. And it's like, nope, I'm not. They scored 59 points in each of the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. I think they're laying 12 this week against Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech is a much improved version of itself, but North Carolina has found itself offensively, and I don't think that there's any way that this team isn't going to at least score into the 40s and cover the 12. I think that UNC is a team that's supposedly on the rise, and I didn't lose confidence with them after the first week of the season. It was certainly ugly, but this is one of the best teams in the ACC, maybe the second best team. You know what? With the way Clemson's been losing, I think you can say that this team could probably play with Clemson when their offense is clicking. I chalk up the Virginia Tech game to a weird week 1 loss on the road in a hostile environment, and I think that this team is going to continue to win games and win them big.
Yeah, it's at 13 actually, but still one that you feel pretty comfortable about with them going into Georgia Tech. Dan, yes. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I really like this play. It's almost made one of my picks. The only thing that worries me a little bit is that Georgia Tech might slow the game down a little too much, but I think in terms of talent and offensive ability, North Carolina should be able to put up a lot of points. And if they hit 30, 35, 40, do you think Georgia Tech can hang at that number? And I don't. So I like this play a lot.
Yeah, this is we saw the bounce back really from this team over the last couple of weeks. And I do think you could chalk it up, that week 1 loss, right? I mean, we're talking about college kids who were playing in front of full crowds for the first time in, a couple of years. And it's not an easy spot to find yourself in, certainly in that hostile environment, right? And that's not just any crowd we know in Blacksburg.
And I try to do my best to not to interrupt you, Mike. But
no, all good. Please interrupt.
College football is a weird sport, and weird things happen all the time. And I try my best when looking at it from a gambling perspective to not overreact to individual results. And sometimes that bites me. It bit me with the Ohio State pick last week. But I think we're far enough removed from the Virginia Tech loss to feel like, hey, this team offensively has figured it out. They've settled down from what was could have been a season-defining loss. And in this week, in this spot, I don't see that Georgia Tech's going to hang with them.
Yeah, it definitely feels like water finding a level over the last couple of weeks for North Carolina. And you look at last week, 59 points on Virginia, definitely a quality opponent there. No one we're putting into the Final Four or anything by that stretch, but a quality opponent. You go out, you hang 59 on them, you should be feeling pretty good about yourself. So Ari on UNC minus 13 at Georgia Tech. Dan, bring us into the Big Ten, your first play of the weekend.
Yeah, I really like Michigan -5 against Nebraska. Now, Nebraska, I was kind of on last week. I didn't bet on it, but I kind of had a feeling that they might cover that OU game. They're playing hard. Their defense is playing well. But I think in that game and in the Illinois game they lost, we saw why they can't win close games. Not can't, but haven't. They've made a lot of mistakes that are losing football team mistakes, right? One of my best friends went to Nebraska, and I'm watching the game, texting him going, did they just false start on 3rd and 1? And he's like, yep, this team to a T, and then they got that blocked extra point when they're actually in the game at OU in the 4th quarter, blocked extra point return for 2. I text him again. I'm going, what the heck is going on? And he goes, yep, watching this team in a nutshell. Like, they have these habits where they struggle in close games. And 5 is a kind of in between number where they could still hang close and lose a close game and cover. But I think Michigan State's formula, they have a really good running game. They have a competent quarterback. We saw that formula work in Miami, and now maybe Miami's not really good right now. They've struggled against any sort of competition so far. But I think Michigan State looks like your classic, strong, solid Big Ten team with that running game formula, the quarterback who doesn't turn it over much, and a solid defense. And Nebraska's a team that beats themselves a lot. So, yeah, I think Nebraska can hang with a team like Michigan State that could end up being a top 20 team by the end of the year and is ranked right now. I just don't see Nebraska winning close game, and I think 5 is a small enough number that Michigan State can cover this.
Ari, you want to jump in? Any thoughts on this game between Michigan State and Nebraska?
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing is we're gaining context every week in terms of what these teams are going to be and who they are. And it's very tough, at least early on in the season, for me to back Mel Tucker's rebuild, but I think now we're at the point where they are at least have earned the respect of saying, hey, this team is going to be much better than we anticipated they might be in Tucker in year 2. And with Nebraska, I think that last week I obviously got trapped by the big Oklahoma spread, but and I do think that Nebraska's playing tougher and harder, but I just can't get my mind out of the way that Nebraska is. And that's just an incompetent football team when things matter the most. There's no other way to put it.
Right.
And, I still feel like this is a team that lost to Illinois and, hasn't looked very good in the time since, maybe improved, but like that is a very important piece of context to me because as much as I say, don't overreact to things, there are certain things where you can't not overreact to because I think it's a very good reaction. So I'm with you on Michigan State here. I think that Nebraska is one more loss away from turning into a complete dumpster fire. And I think that loss could be this weekend.
Yeah, transitive property doesn't necessarily apply in sports, but if you lose to Illinois and then you go on and do what Nebraska has done since then that Illinois loss is always going to stick out there as like this team can be that bad week in and week out. So
it's not one of those things too with they beat or lost to Illinois and then Illinois. It's just they lost to Illinois. Like if you're capable of losing to Illinois, I'm not trying to transitive anything. It's just a head-to-head matchup of like, what does that tell you about Nebraska? And I think it tells you quite a bit.
It definitely tells you quite a bit. I'm going to jump into the NFL for my first pick of the week. It'll be my second pick as well. Again, Texans and Panthers going head-to-head tonight to kick off week 3. I don't love anything on the total or the spread. 8 points is a lot to be laying on the road on a short week, even though we think the Panthers might be a pretty good team this season. Going up against Davis Mills, his first career start with Tyrod Taylor out today because of the hamstring injury. I look at Robbie Anderson, and that's a very low number for him. 43.5 receiving yards is his prop. I think he goes over that, and I think we get some context clues, actually, guys, from the rest of the props. Most specifically, Robbie Anderson's reception prop. It's 3.5, and it is minus 155. So it is a significant favorite that he goes over 3.5 catches. Last year, Robbie Anderson had at least 4 catches in 14 games, and in 12 of those, he went 44 yards or more, and in most of those, it was way over 44 yards. So if he is a major favorite to get the 4 catches, When he gets to 4 catches, he is also a major favorite to go over 43.5 receiving yards. So I will take what I feel like is basically the same bet, 4 catches, 44 yards, but I'll take the minus 110 price rather than the minus 155 price that you have to lay to get that reception prop. So give me Robbie Anderson. It's been a slow start to the season for him, but a pretty good start to the season for Sam Darnold and this passing game. I think we see Robbie Anderson get in the mix more than he has been the first couple of weeks of this season. I really like him going over this number. Did I sell you guys on that? Can I get you on board with me?
I ever since you hit the first
CD.
prop, the CD prop, I've been in, and like I was with you on the Logan Thomas prop last week, and I don't know if you mentioned this on the show, but I was watching the game last Thursday, and the first play of the game, he had a wide open. I think he was 25 yards downfield, and Heineke just missed him, and I was like Shooter McGavin on the
right. At the point of the catch, he was at 25 yards. We're more than halfway to winning that on the very first play of the game if Heineke doesn't throw the ball behind him. But can't take those back. Feel good that Robbie Anderson at least gets that back. A 1-unit loss, a 1-unit win right here. Give me Robbie Anderson going over the 43.5 mark tonight against the Texans. Obviously, if you're here with us on Best on the Board, you like to have a little bit of skin in the game. Our partners at BetMGM are going to help you do just that. Right now, you can bet $10 to win $150 and get a free 3-month subscription to The Athletic. If you go to betmgm.com/TABest. That subscription, not just for new subscribers. If you're an existing subscriber, we're going to tack on 3 more months to your subscription for free. So again, it's a bet 10, win 150, plus get that 3-month subscription to The Athletic. Go to betmgm.com/TABest. It's a new customer offer. Terms and conditions apply. All right, guys, pick 2 for each of us here, and we're going to go to you, Ari, living in the ACC, actually, this week. Didn't make the connection before right now, but after UNC laying 13 at Georgia Tech, you got another ACC road favorite that you want to back for pick number 2.
I'm just got to stay away from the Big Ten for a minute. After the thing here is that I think that we have to stop playing the helmet game and just kind of admit that Florida State sucks. I mean, they're not a very good football team. They've had one really good half of football against Notre Dame in week 1. And as the weeks go by, I think we're also starting to figure out that Notre Dame is not very good, and actually was pretty close to making Wisconsin one of my picks this week, but I didn't want to make you too happy, Mike. So I just but that line has moved from 5 to 6.5 as well. Yep. So I like Wisconsin as well this weekend. But Louisville is just had pretty good quarters. They've got pretty good lines. Florida State's strength is their defensive line. I think Louisville's offensive line could hold up to that. Louisville's 4-1 against the spread again in the last 5 games against Florida State. Florida State is like 1-6 in its last 7 games, and like they just lost to Jacksonville State and didn't really show much of a pulse against Wake Forest last week. I know that the line movement is kind of scary in this game, as you informed me before. It went from 2.5 to 1.5, but Louisville, in my opinion, is playing much better than they were to start the season. And really, when you think about who they've played in terms of offensive juggernauts, Mississippi and UCF, they beat one of those teams coming off a major win against UCF a week ago. And, they've held up pretty well against 2 teams that I think are much, much better than Florida State. So on the road, I like them to go there and get the win. And I just don't know that Florida State has much of a pulse right now.
Yeah, it's that was my impression after Florida State Notre Dame earlier this season when Jack Cohn had the big game, and knowing Jack Cohn from watching all of his time at Wisconsin, my first impression was maybe Notre Dame's or maybe Florida State's not very good if that's what they let Jack Cohn put up against them. So I can get on board with this.
I saw a tweet after that game that was really funny though.
Yeah, what was it?
Somebody, and I'm not to be offensive to you, but I just thought it was hilarious. But after Jack Cohn tore up Florida State's defense, somebody said it looks like Jack Cohn had a Wisconsin problem, not the vice versa.
Oh, boy.
It was a shot at Wisconsin, and I think that we're starting to regress back to the mean on that one.
Yeah, might just be Jack Cohn having a little bit of a Jack Cohn problem, which I guess I feel guilty about saying about a guy who's like, I don't know, 15 or 16 years younger than me. But that's the conversation that we are in the middle of having, and I love that extra little Wisconsin pick. Game at Soldier Field, not too far from where both Dan and I are sitting right now. Dan, take us into the SEC for your second pick of the week.
Yeah, I'm sticking to the two conferences I think I know best from my school allegiances, but Kentucky, South Carolina, Kentucky -5. I just don't think South Carolina is any good. I think this line is a little bit of an overreaction. I know Ari loves talking about overreactions here. I'm going to bring one up. Kentucky struggled with Chattanooga last week, which is a little weird, but I think it was one of those weird in-between games. They just came off a pretty big win against Missouri, where that's kind of like the third place game in the SC East, or at least we think it might be. Kentucky got that win, looked pretty solid by my eye, and now they're playing a South Carolina team that I don't think is very good. South Carolina also, just coming off getting blown out by Georgia, which, no big deal there, but also really struggled against East Carolina. So it's not like they haven't had a close game against the inferior opponent on paper. Kentucky's won 5 of 6 in this series. You guys realize that? Kentucky is turned into a pretty competent SEC team. I know that you talk about helmets and Kentucky, lags behind in that conference, but they've been a really solid team for a while. And since Spurrier left, South Carolina has not been. I think 5 is a relatively small number here to play. I know it's a road game in the SEC. I just don't think South Carolina is any good, and I think we're going to find that out. I think Kentucky's been a solid team and can win this game by a score or two.
The Kentucky program is completely different than it was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Mark Stoops has completely elevated the recruiting results of that program. He's dipped into Ohio and taken prospects that should have been going to Big Ten schools and, has made them a very competent football team. The only thing that would scare me just a little bit on this is that South Carolina is having a huge recruiting weekend this weekend. And the coaches really, really need to win this game. Now, I don't know how much that has any bearing on whether or not they're actually going to do that. And I actually talked to Shane Beamer on the phone this week for a story about his rant about Georgia. But I do think that Kentucky is probably the better football team here. The only thing that is a little bit tough here is 5 is just a truly odd number to lay.
Yeah.
And if you're laying 5, you're laying 7, basically, or you're laying 6.
Right.
And, that can get kind of tricky on the road. But I do think that Kentucky is more than 5 points better of a football team than South Carolina. They're just going to have to go out and not lay an egg like they did for the first week or the whole game against Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those, good point there, one of those weird in-between numbers where game script almost is going to be not just as important as Kentucky playing as good as it is and as better as it is in South Carolina, but you do need things to be flowing in such a way where they don't need a score late where they're already winning, things of that nature. You really do want them to be a couple of scores ahead going in late so they don't have to worry about getting above that 5 with where that sits. Dan, Kentucky -5 at South Carolina. I'm going to wrap us up by going back to the Panthers. I typically, so back in week 1, Ari brought up my amazing CeeDee Lamb play, and that one hit. I also had one that I didn't talk about on the show where, it's the first week of the season. Let's have some fun. CeeDee Lamb to score the first touchdown of the game. The Buccaneers scored the first touchdown of that game. Chris Godwin, I want to say. Maybe it was one of Gronk's touchdowns. Either way, the Buccaneers scored the first touchdown of that game. Then CeeDee Lamb comes back on the very next possession and scores a touchdown. It's like, all right, that's it. I am done with first touchdown props. I will bet a player to score his team's first touchdown, but I'm not playing the luck game where I need that team to score first also. So I look up and down the Panthers, and anytime I can get Christian McCaffrey on some sort of touchdown prop like this, I sort of want to get behind it. I talked about him last week on our Athletic Fantasy Football podcast show where we go into every single game for the week, and I had him going over the 113.5 total yards mark that he had a week ago. Cruised past it, and this week it's up to 134.5. And so, Christian McCaffrey is the sort of guy who you want to bet whenever the price comes down just a little bit. And this is a little bit lower of a number than we're used to seeing from Christian McCaffrey. His anytime touchdown is -225. So the gap between anytime and first, even though you do need a little bit of luck to be the first touchdown, it's a little too wide for me to not want to get on this. So I will take Christian McCaffrey at the plus mark at 175 to score the Panthers' first touchdown. Let's just hope, guys, because we need a little bit of luck. And I feel like luck should be on our side after that 1-5 week. And go back to week 1 where we had a couple of very narrow losses between the three of us. Luck needs to be on the side of best on the board this week.
I'm taking McCaffrey first to overall touchdown.
What's that sitting at?
I think it's like plus 320. But I'm just doing it based on what you said. But I'm showing confidence in you by taking it a step further.
Better hope the Texans win the toss. Although maybe Davis Mills doesn't strike the fear of God into your heart that he's going to march downfield and put a score on the Texans right away. So
I've got Davis Mills in my my dynasty fantasy football league. So you watch your mouth.
I'm in most of the leagues I play in are super flex leagues, where you're starting 2 quarterbacks every week. And so I had to scoop Davis Mills in one because Tua out this week, Ben Roethlisberger potentially out this week, and those are my second and third quarterbacks in that league. So I'm actually looking at maybe do I roll the dice and wait to see if Roethlisberger plays this weekend, or do I just go ahead and trot Davis Mills out there? So it's a fun 10 hours or so ahead for me as I mull over that potential decision. Christian McCaffrey first touchdown is plus 333 on BetMGM. I'm not going for the first overall touchdown, just the first Panthers touchdown at plus 175. And that's going to do it for this episode of Best on the Board. Let's do it, guys. Let's go out there. Let's put a 4-2 week up on the board between the three of us. That's what I'm feeling. 4-2, 5-1. This is the week to turn things around. Thank you for sticking with us, watching us here on YouTube, listening to the podcast as well. This show returns on Friday. Me and Casey Joyner are going to take a deeper look at the NFL. The three of us will be back here a week from now to take a look at Week 5 college football and Week 4 NFL. Have a great night. Enjoy all the games that you'll be watching. Happy betting, and we'll talk to you soon.